What if I told you there was something new on the market that you could just put underneath your carburetor, like a spacer plate, that would act like EFI and keep your AFRs regulated? Would that not be crazy? And what if I told you it was super simple to install, but you can keep the looks of your carburetor, you can keep the performance of your carburetor, and for you blow through guys, you can use it as well and use your carburetor to cool the charge, which is one of the main reasons why we love a carburetor, right? And it all still looks stock. What I'm about to show you in this video could absolutely change the way we carburate cars.
I'm Steve Van Order with DIY Auto Tune and AMP Engine Management. We are testing out a product from CFI, Carburetor Fuel Injection. The purpose of the product is to essentially give you some closed-loop fuel control with your carbureted application.
Sometimes carburetor tuning can get a little finicky. Now, I've gotten decent at it myself, but I know there's a lot of people out there left in the world that aren't so good at carburetor tuning. They still want to have all this functionality. So how do we get this car to run more like EFI? Well, I'm about to show you. What you're looking at right here is an under the CARB EFI support system is what I'll call it. Think of this. You've got a nice little plate, right, that hangs out underneath your carburetor. And there's an O2 sensor in your exhaust. And that O2 sensor goes to this little computer. When the O2 sensor sees that the engine's a little lean, see that injector right there? Yeah, the system goes skeet skeet. Now your car is running at whatever desired AFR you typed in. So typically how you would do this would be lean out your carburetor just a little bit. And here's why I say that. Give this EFI system that goes underneath your carburetor, give it a job to do. It can't pull fuel from your carburetor, but what it can do is add fuel. So just go a little on the lean side, not unsafe, and let this thing do all the work. If this works, this is going to be phenomenal. Here's the deal. You carburetor guys that are interested in something like this, you know who you are. If you got a carburetor, maybe you're not the best tuner in the world. Even if you are, this still should help. I was offered the opportunity to be able to try this thing out. There may be some headaches, there may be some trip ups along the way, but if there is, then I'll just be honest about it. We'll talk about it, I'll let him know, and then we'll fix those problems if we can. With that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get started removing the Terminator X from this car, and then we'll probably start videoing once we start the install. All right, as you can see, or maybe not see, we got the Terminator X out of the car. We'll go ahead and get the plate system on the car and then get the carburetor back on it. Now we're set up for 6 a.m. So let's go ahead and get our gaskets on, get this thing placed down. Also, they even give you some studs. So let's go ahead and take these out of the package, see if they're gonna work for our application. Nice ARP. I don't know if these will be included in the actual final version. It's hard to say, but we got them right here, so let's use them. Right here. Put this on, and for right now, we're just gonna get this up here. Yeah. So from here, I'm gonna go ahead and start running some of the wiring, and we'll see what we got. Ultimately, I mean, this thing could be fired up in hardly no time. It just depends on how particular you wanna get with hiding wires, running them, and all that stuff.
Watermelon. Dripping summer style, Fox body vibes that'll make you smile. Neon glow cruising day and night. Retro Fox looking clean and right. If you love that old school drag swag flow, hit up Essie, y'all already know. Check us out, roll the drag swag, fresh Fox body gear they wish they had.
All right, let's see if we can get this thing pushed in here. So this is the harness. I don't think I really showed you guys. Let me take a second and show you what we got here. So this is the end that'll connect to the ECU inside. This is your O2 sensors. That comes down into this like a squid right here. And this is where all of the extra wires and all go. Now, what you're gonna have here is, this is labeled for RPM. Next up will be power and ground. This is IAT, so the car can pull timing and everything else. This is coolant temp. Here's all your little extras, So I do have a pin-out for this, so I can kind of tell you what everything does, but I'll talk about that a little later. Either I'll just go ahead and put it up on the screen for you guys, what they all do. Okay, over here is injector 1. Remember, you can run 2 injectors on this, right? Front and back if you need it for higher horsepower application, something like that. And then injector 2. So that's your whole harness. Let's go ahead and feed this thing through. Should be fairly damn simple, honestly. Oh yeah, look at that. It just drops right in. We pretty much got this thing ran. The only thing we got to do now is basically hook power up and hook a couple of these little connections up that we need, and for RPM and things like that, and we're basically ready to fire this thing off. So it's pretty damn easy. Look at that. Since this is just a prototype and we're testing, is I'm going to wire in my own connections to run my TFI distributor. Now, you do not have to run a TFI distributor. You can run an MSD2 wire, but there's a little bit of a difference, and I don't understand all the technical terminology, but you can do that as well, okay? You just probably need to let them know which style distributor you want to run. Now, eventually there's going to probably be an option for a plug, right? So you can just plug it right into your TFI. But as of right now, we're still in the prototype kind of testing phase. So I'm just going to get these little spade connectors here and push them in where they need to go, and then get them out to where they need to. So power, ground, pip, spout, things like that. So I'll get back to you guys once I get all this stuff done. We've got everything temporarily wired up. As far as this expansion harness goes here, we're only going to be using 1 wire out of it temporarily, and that's just going to be this purple wire, and that's going to be for the fuel pump, okay? Now, there's an optional wire over here that you can trigger a fan with. That's what we're going to use this for. So we'll get to that eventually, but right now we don't need fuel pump. We don't need any of that. As you can see down here, I went in and added each individual wire with a spade connector right here. Now, I can just take a harness and cut it temporarily off of an old car, maybe at the junkyard, and use that. But eventually this will have its own plug-in deal here. So it'll be very, very easy and foolproof. Now, this is a simple job. Don't misunderstand all this wiring. But there again, we're in the testing phase. So we're trying to see what we're going to want here and what we're going to need, or what you guys are going to want to see. So this is a perfect opportunity for you guys to tell us what it is that you want to see. You do have TPS if you want to wire that in, and fan control. And I thought that would pretty much, you know, be about all you would really need. You're going to have your timing control, of course, and now we're going to have fuel added. But with that said, I want to take y'all over here. So you're just going to click on Tuner Studio. That's what we're going to be tuning with. All right, it's going to take it a second to pop up. I know there's a glare on the screen. I'm sorry, y'all. Now, what you're going to want to do here is go to New, Create New Project. All right, and then what you're going to do is go to Detect right here. And what that's going to do is detect your computer, your ECU. Just switch the key on, and look at that. It's already found it. I'll click Accept. Up here, everything you need. All this pretty much stays the same. You're good to go there. All right, here all this is good. All right, pick your display type that you want. I'm going to stick with the default. Finish. And you are done. All right, so that's going to take you in here to Tuner Studio. As you can see, everything loads up. We're good to go. And that's how you're going to load this up. Now, there again, a lot of things are going to change with this. So we'll just have to see how it all works out. If there's something that you want to see in this, let us know now. Remember, though, that Tuner Studio is going to be stripped down more than what it is right now. There's some settings and stuff in there that won't affect us with this type of kit. So that'll all be stripped out. Anyway, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and play around with this thing and see if we can't get it to basically try to fire. We don't want to run the car. Hell, the carburetor's not even bolted down, but basically we just want to see if this thing will try to pop, pop, pop. Well, that's, looks like it's going to fire up. So what I'm going to do now is stop. I'm still not going to tidy everything up, but I'm going to secure everything a little bit better. We got to get the oxygen sensor hooked up. And for the injector on this car, remember, we're running high pressure. So what we're going to have to do is tap into the front side of the fuel line before it gets into the regulator. Because when it gets into the regulator, it brings it down to 3 to 10. Now we could run that. I currently want the high pressure. So I'm gonna have to cut this line sadly and come off of it with some 6AN. We'll just kind of go from here with it and see what we got. All right, guys, I'll catch y'all once we get this thing dialed in a little bit better. Now that we've got the install done, I'm gonna take you guys in here and show you exactly how this system works. And we're gonna unplug it, plug it back in, and show you the difference. It's pretty damn cool if you ask me. I am choosing to control ignition settings with this as well. You don't have to do that. You can only control the fuel side if you'd like, but you know me, I took my Terminator X out to put this in because it can control ignition timing as well. So you can go in and change your ignition. And basically, let me show you guys, because I know a lot of people don't understand this whenever I talk about it. This system will allow you to create a custom timing curve. So as you can see, we idle somewhere over here in this area, and it's 30 degrees at idle. As soon as we blip the throttle, it comes up kind of at an arc like this, and you can see what happens, all right? So this is really helpful if you guys want to utilize that function, but you do not have to. Now over here in the fuel settings, I'll show you guys. Here are your fuel numbers. Now these are just arbitrary numbers. They don't necessarily mean anything. Everybody's is going to be a little different. You know, if you see 100 over here, that doesn't mean that it's at max fuel that it can deliver. That doesn't mean that. These numbers can be as big or as small as they need to be depending on your setup. So I'm going to go ahead and start the car up and let's talk about it. So these are your numbers over here. This is the AFR right here. I want you guys to watch when I change these numbers over here. All right, we just leaned the injector out. Look at that. It'll take it a second, but this thing will start to lean up. Look at that. There's your ego correction. So it's trying its best to correct as much as it can, but it doesn't have enough over here to be able to do that with. So what we can do is go back, change this to 100 if we'd like. Burn it. Now watch this number come down. Look at that. Nice, huh? So what really matters here is the ego correction authority. How much authority are you giving this computer to be able to correct? Now that's something that we're not necessarily going to have to worry about, but CFI will make sure that all that stuff is done correctly for you, and there'll be basically custom maps for you. So you'll be able to decide whether you have a high compression, low compression, you know, whatever else. There'll be a couple of options for you guys to be able to pick from whenever you first install this product. And that's just so that if you have a high compression car, your timing table probably needs to be a little lower than the guy that doesn't have a lot of compression, right? There'll be a couple of variants.
I want to step in here to clarify that you don't have to control timing with this kit. If you have a point set up or you're running it through an MSD, you don't even have to hook any of that up. I personally like to control my timing, which is why I have this hooked up.
So let's talk about how this thing actually works. It's got an O2 sensor, a wideband sensor that connects to your exhaust. It goes to the little computer, and basically as soon as it sees that your engine is running lean, it'll fire the injector as much as needed to get it back up to your target AFR. Now your target AFR absolutely can be set. You set it to whatever you want this thing to be throughout the whole range, right? Just like you would with the Terminator X or anything else. Your carburetor is doing carburetor things. That's just what it's gonna do, right? The only thing that this injector can do is add fuel. It can't take away fuel from your carburetor. So how do we combat that if the carburetor is already a little rich? Well, it's pretty simple, right? All we do is go out and lean the carburetor up slightly in all areas. I'll give you guys an example. Let's just say you're shooting for 14.7 on your AFR and your car is rich at 13.5. What we want to do is get this thing up somewhere around about 15.0-ish. Then the injector has a job to do, right? So if the carburetor's a little lean, the injector can pick it back up. And this works really good for drag racing as well. So if you're out there and you're making a pass and for some reason you have a lean spot throughout the transition of your carburetor, this can add to that. So I will tell you guys, I took this car for a little preliminary drive and man, it cleaned up the transition for this car. I thought it was already good. That's the crazy thing about it. But come to find out, it wasn't as smooth as I thought with the carburetor. So this thing's just kind of filling in those gaps, if you will. This is more for, let's say, the classic car guy that just cannot get his carburetor dialed in. It's either too lean or too fat, or it's got stumbles and it's got all this crazy stuff. This can smooth that out for you. Also, it will help with cold starts. So let's think about that for a second. What do you got to do when you get into a carbureted car? Pump the gas, right? But this thing can send a pump shot for you through the injector to help wet the walls and get your car to start a lot easier and a lot quicker. So think about that. Also, on cold days, your car's going to want to run a little lean. This thing's going to pick up for you. It's going to fix all that. Now, this is a very simple system, but I understand that a lot of people are like, man, I don't want to deal with any computers and things. So I think eventually, and don't hold me to this, they're going to have a screen, like kind of like a Holly screen, right? That you could just pick your options real quick, and then this thing's done. Guys, you should not have to touch this system. You should not have to. If there's enough ego authority in here to correct the system for you, as long as your carburetor's not overly rich, this thing will pick up. I'll tell you this. So I'm about to tell you some very valuable information, and this will tell you how powerful this system is. We leaned this car out to the point to where it picked up 4 numbers on the AFR. 4 numbers from one injector. There's also a dual injector option as well. So for you guys that really, you could pretty much just run a car off of that, honestly. But for you guys that really need the extra fuel for some reason, there will be a dual injector option as well. So I know one of the questions that everybody's gonna have, it's gonna be, well, I'm carbureted and I'm low pressure. I'm somewhere between 5 and 7 PSI. That's not gonna fire this injector. So what do I have to do? Nothing. Nothing. This injector works from 3 to 10 PSI on like a carbureted setup, or it also works on high pressure EFI pumps as well. Now my car has a high pressure EFI pump that's regulated down at the regulator to feed the carburetor a lower PSI. So I can either hook it up before the regulator and get the high pressure side of it, or I can connect it coming from the regulator and go in with the low side. Now what's the difference there? Well, in theory, the difference is going to be if you're on the low side of the fuel, you're not going to get as much ability from the injector to be able to control fueling for you. In other words, it's just not going to have as much pressure behind the injector, so it's not going to be able to supply as much fuel. Now on the low side of things, you're probably not going to get 4 numbers of AFR increase. First off, let's just step back and look. That's a simple carbureted setup, right? Now, I've not done anything with the wires yet, but that doesn't even look cluttered, right? It looks very simple. So you keep that look of your carburetor. All right, with that being said, here's your carburetor fuel line right here. See this? And it goes right over to my regulator. I've currently got this set on the low side of pressure for the injector. So see, on this side of the regulator, we come out and we go into the back side back here where this injector is. And look at that. You guys can't even see that hardly. There's a little fuel rail back there. See that black block? That's a fuel rail, and your injector is inside of that. You got a couple of wires that come out for your coolant temp right here, and everything is nice and labeled for you. Your IATs over here. And then there will be, for the Fox Body guys, we're going to work on having a plug and play TFI setup for you guys. I had to wire mine in, but you guys should have a plug and play option. That'll be coming in time. Also, you can control your fans if you choose, which is what I chose to do with the extra output on this. This is your whole setup right here. You got a vacuum line here, and that's for KPA, for your map sensor. You got your little plug over here. That's so you can hook up to the computer, and then your main harness. That's it. Look how small this thing is, guys. You can just, boop, tucked up in there. Nice and neat, right? Terminator X is still down there, and I'm not bashing a Terminator X. I still love these things. I think that's important that you guys know that I'm not bashing Terminator X. I absolutely love them, and that's something that I talked about with the owner of CFI about this is, hey, look, I'm not gonna sit here and bash Terminator X. He's like, no, absolutely not. Guys, I wanna go drive the car currently, but we have got horrible weather rolling in right now, and it's thundering, and I don't want to get caught. But I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go around the neighborhood real quick. How about that? That's the best I can do at the moment. Let's drive this thing. All right, we're just going to go for a quick drive around the neighborhood. I'm trying to screen record at the moment, so I'll show you guys a screen record of this, hopefully before it rains. It runs so much cleaner. It makes the cam seem a little smaller. Guys, I just drove the car for you just to show you that, hey, everything works. It's all hooked up. More information will be coming on this kit. Just give us a little while so that we can work all the bugs out of it. I just wanted to show you guys that it does work. I absolutely love it. And I just feel like this is going to be the next step for carbureted guys, right? You still get the advantage of controlling timing like with the Terminator X, and now you actually get some fuel control. Yeah, I think I'm gonna get inside before I get struck by lightning. Wow, it's getting rough out here. Also, if you're interested in this, head over to CFI. I'll put a link down below and they can get you helped out.
Fox body prime and camshaft sound. Brutal shirts all over town. Lowered stance and burnout flames. Retro Fox is built for fame. Washed black tees, vintage style. Built for car guys driving wild. Brutal, wear it loud, wear it proud.
Wow, what is up with this freaking weather? Every day, it's every day now.
I'm Steve Van Order with DIY Auto Tune and AMP Engine Management. And I've been working with Nakia for a while now. We are testing out a product from CFI, Carbureted Fuel Injection. The purpose of the product is to essentially give you some closed-loop fuel control with your carbureted application. And so far, everything works really well.
It does.
We've had quite a bit of success so far with it. I kind of think the high pressure system works better than the low pressure system, in my opinion.
I agree. Both work, but the high pressure is definitely a little better.
Yeah, it seems to be more responsive through the testing that we've done so far. But the entire premise behind this is essentially what it does is it places a fuel injector under the carburetor, and it allows you to add fuel via the fuel injector. And the reason why that works so well is because, you know, a carburetor is essentially just a metered fuel leak, right?
That's right.
So it allows you to lean the carburetor out a little bit, and then the extra fuel is then added via the injector. And on a high pressure system, you're adding a very fine mist of fuel. And the goal here is not for the injector to do a whole lot of work. It is just supplementing the carburetor. The carburetor is still doing all the carburetor things. It's just doing it a little on the lean side. And then that allows the system to use an O2 sensor in the exhaust to add fuel in a closed loop fashion. So basically, it's always targeting an air-fuel ratio that you set, and then it adds any fuel that's necessary to get to that target.
That's right.
And it allows you to essentially run your carburetor a little leaner, a little cleaner. The goal here is to get better fuel economy. And what we found is actually the throttle response is really good. A lot of times with a carburetor, you'll be throughout the rev range at wide open throttle, you'll be leaner in areas than you want to be, and then you'll be richer in areas than you want to be. And this will allow you to essentially supplement that fuel with the injector. And this way you get the exact air-fuel ratio that you're commanding across the rev range.
I was just going to add something that, you know, is kind of obvious is the system's not going to do anything if you're overly rich everywhere. It doesn't have a job to do since it can't pull fuel. So you need to make sure, you know, that you're a little on the lean side.
That's correct. And we actually tested that to make sure that it acted like it was supposed to. And essentially what the system does is it basically shuts the injector off all the way. It just shuts it off when you're too rich so that you don't flood the engine. So the goal here is you install the kit, and then you back the fuel off to the carburetor, and then the kit supplements the remaining fuel. So if you're too rich, it can't add anything.
Yeah.
You know, but what it's going to do is it's going to supplement that fuel and make everything kind of nice and crispy.
That's right.
Now, what I like about it is, you know, I grew up at the drag strip. My dad was always a carburetor guy. I'm not. I don't know where to plug my laptop into a carburetor, to be perfectly honest with you. So
Well, you can now.
I'm a laptop fuel injected guy. And what I like is this kind of bridges the gap because it allows me to see what the sensor feedback is, right?
Right.
So with this kit installed, I can see what's the air fuel ratio, and I can affect the air fuel ratio by telling the system to add or subtract fuel. I'm probably going to advocate for one of these kits to be installed on my dad's race car. He runs small block Ford carburetor nitrous type setup, and it'll be really nice to be able to see it. The system can control the ignition timing, so I can set an ignition timing curve instead of him having to, he's a lock timing kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be able to get in there and, I'll be able to appropriately help him, do more with the same amount.
That's right.
Right. And because it's hooked up to the whole engine, we can also data log.
There's also safety measures involved in it too. So if the thing does go too lean or the car gets too hot, you can pull timing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can overheat. You can even add fuel if the car is starting to run hot. You could add fuel to try and pull some heat out of the engine. There's options there. But for the vast majority of users, especially in if you've got like a cruiser setup, classic or whatever, and you're just trying to get rid of some of that, really fuel smell at idle, this is a great way to do that. You're going to be able to lean the carburetor and let the system do its thing. If you're going for power and it's more of a street strip type setup, this is essentially going to do the same thing. It's going to let you get a little bit more fuel economy with that aggressive setup. Dial in an air fuel ratio at wide open throttle, so it's less guessing as well.
That's right. And I also don't want people to think that you have to go super lean unsafely on your carburetor. You don't necessarily have to go to that extreme, but you do need to give it a job. If you're overly fat, then you do need to pull some fuel from there if you can, so that way the injector has a job to do and it can smooth out everything. But I don't recommend you go out there and you just put this thing at 18.0 and it's extremely lean. Try to work with it, in my opinion, and give it a good balance to where it's not having to add too many numbers.
The best balance we found on your car when we were setting the system up is we unplugged the injector.
Yeah.
And we leaned the carburetor until you're about 16.0, a little leaner than 16 air fuel ratio in the gas scale. And then when we plugged the injector in, the system just took over.
It did. And
did its thing. And I knew what to expect, obviously, because EFI is all I do, right?
That's right.
I'm the owner here. That's all I do here at Amp Engine Management is I do fuel injected things. But I've never worked in this type of application where I'm just supplementing fuel to the carburetor.
Yeah.
And I was uncertain as to the exact outcome of this, but I think it worked really well.
It did. I actually spoke with Mike today, and he asked me, he said, well, how do you think it's going so far? And the owner of CFI. And I said, I think it's going great. I said, honestly, it feels like it's not doing anything. I said, it's so weird. And I said, but it's in the background just making things happen. And it's not something that you notice. It's one of these things that's just so seamless in the background. It just makes the car drive great. It's not something you can like pinpoint, when you're driving the car. But it will absolutely smooth your car out. It's just so crazy that it's in the background doing that. And you expect to have to do more, like on the user's end, right? Like you're constantly going to have to mess with it or input this and input that. But if you've got enough ego control, this thing can go in and do whatever it needs to do.
Yeah, so the goal here is to ship the thing out the door with a calibration that's going to work in like 95% of applications without ever even having to touch anything, right?
Yes.
You install it, you'll lean the carb out a little bit. If you're not doing ignition control or anything like that. The goal is to be able to install it and never even crack a laptop open.
That's right.
Ultimately, that is the goal. But for those guys who, like me, I can't help but go tinker with something.
Yeah.
I can't help but go mess with it. I have to have something to do on the weekend. If I don't look busy, the wife will find something for me to do.
That's true. That's true. Well, I know one of the questions that everybody's going to have is there eventually going to be an option for a handheld?
So yeah, I was talking with Mike about that today. Handheld, I don't know if you've ever actually tried to tune through a handheld.
Oh yeah,
It's
I have.
I describe it as punching yourself in the face.
Yeah.
It works fine for if you're trying to do like something very minor, but if I'm doing anything more than like changing a rev limiter, I'm cracking open a laptop. I don't mess with handhelds. That's good for displaying information.
Yes.
A handheld for displaying information for what's going on live, absolutely, that's something that we're looking at doing, and relatively quickly.
Yeah.
So that's something we've already been working on for other systems. So that's pretty easy button.
That would be something that I think most guys would be familiar with. You'd be able to see your RPM, your AFR, other things, the water temp, things like that, coolant temp. You'd be able to see all that stuff. So, and it does give you a peace of mind. So that looks like that will be coming at some point.
100%. So essentially, the handheld that we're gonna have, it could either be a handheld, it may just be a 52 millimeter gauge.
Okay.
We already have a product that we're working on releasing that, it is essentially a smartphone screen. It's super high resolution, has LED ring. It's a really nice product. We're thinking about doing something very specific for this CFI kit with that. If people want a pendant with like a 3.5-inch screen, we could do that if that's what people want. But I think a gauge pod's just cleaner, and it's there to display information for you.
That's right.
Right. It's not there to tune through. It's going to be a display first. If you need to do something like, change your ignition timing or change your air fuel ratio target, you're not going to be doing that through a handheld no matter what. You need to open a laptop.
So essentially, just so everybody understands, this should be pretty much plug and play, right? So you'll be able to plug this thing in and have a relatively safe tune. Now, if you want to go and get this thing dyno tuned and you want to have full control over timing and everything else, that shouldn't be a problem, correct?
That should not be a problem at all. I mean, what this kit is targeted towards is your carbureted, distributor engines.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try and make sure that we have options for plug and play with things like HEI, TFI, your typical aftermarket distributors, things of that nature, just to try and make it easy. If you're handy and you know how to wire things, then you won't need to buy an extra sub harness. You can, you'll be able to make it work on your own. But we want to make things easy for people and take the stress out of it. Right. The installing a kit shouldn't be stressful. It should be pretty easy. We're going to have on there, you're going to be able to control a cooling fan if you want to control a cooling fan. The market that this is actually geared towards your classic car market. But I foresee a lot of carb swap guys, being able to find a lot of use out of this.
Yes. 100%. Well, here's what I'll say, and I actually mentioned it in this particular video, is I thought my carburetor was pretty good, and it was. It was tuned pretty close, and I was able to drive it around, and mannerisms were pretty good, and I bragged on it until I put this kit on and noticed just how much cleaner it was. It's one of those things that you probably won't appreciate, and if you ever go to question it, just go out and unplug that injector real quick, and you'll see the difference that it makes. It really smoothed my car out, and I had like I said, I thought it was already good, and it was, but this is just better. So this is just always going to be in the background, smoothing things out for you.
Yeah, and what we noticed is you had your carburetor tuned pretty darn rich.
Yeah.
Before we leaned it out and hooked the injector up, driving it around, we noticed it's pretty, especially at wide open throttle, because I think you had it tuned, the carburetor adjusted for nitrous.
Yeah, it was.
But the nice thing is if you are running nitrous, you could then set your air-fuel ratio target for something fatter for nitrous.
That's
and
right.
just in case, the great thing about this is, like, what if your fuel filter is not doing its job?
Yep.
And you get a little something in the carburetor, and now you don't have to necessarily worry about, oh, I hit a lean spot,
Yep.
right? You have a supplemental fuel system that will compensate for that.
That's true.
So it is a nice peace of mind.
Well, I think most
mean,
guys, they compensate. They usually go rich, a little on the rich side, just for colder weather, for elevation changes, for this and that, and they're usually safe that way. And the carburetors run fine like that. But there is power to be found if you can get this thing closer to target, and that's what we've noticed with it. Throttle response was one of the things that I noticed immediately was way better because it cleans up that, like, if with my car, I'm just a little shy on pump shot. I really need a bigger squirter on my car, and this is something that can be compensated for in the system.
Yeah, the system, depending on how technical you want to get, or if you want to get into the software, pump shot enrichments are available. Vehicle warm-up enrichments are available. So if you don't want to deal with a choke when the engine's cold, the system can add extra fuel during warm-up. If people are interested, we could even add elevation correction. Although usually that's compensated for automatically with the O2 feedback.
That's right.
It just depends on how into the system you want to get. The goal here is to create something that is very simple. If it's not necessary, it's basically being stripped away. And we want users to feel very comfortable and make it very simple for people to use.
Well, and I think that's the magic of this. If you need it to be simple, it's as simple as it could possibly be. But if you want more out of it, there are other options that you can do, that you can pursue, especially if you're okay with opening a laptop, getting in, playing with some stuff. I understand a lot of the things will be stripped out, but the things that can be adjusted will still be there for the user, correct?
Absolutely. This initial kit, again, is meant for distributor guys. So, you'll be able to set your ignition curve. You'll be able to decide, what kind of, ignition system are you running, that sort of thing. If you've got direct coil control, or are you running an MSD box or a TFI system, you'll be able to pick those very basic items. Set your air fuel ratio target. What temperature do you want your cooling fan to turn on? Are you using the system to run a TAC? So if you've got a 4-cylinder engine, I'm a V8 guy myself, but
Yeah.
Or a V8 or whatever you're using, you can set the TAC output to run your TAC appropriately if necessary.
Right.
So, but all those extra things that the system's capable of doing, we're just going to take away and strip out because that's not the purview of the system, right? We want the system to be simple, plug and play, ease of use. It doesn't need to be, and have all this EFI extra stuff in it that's just unnecessary.
Yeah, we don't want to confuse anybody with it. Now, we did dive into it pretty heavy, and we asked a lot of the system on our install, but that's also something that needed to be done in testing. So we were able to go in and make changes and do some things that most guys probably wouldn't play with or mess with, but it did teach us a lot about what the system can do and the capabilities. And also it helps that you guys watching right now, it helps you understand the possibility of the system, but it is absolutely not necessary for you to go and have to do all the things that we've done in this video.
Absolutely. So the goal here is, again, simplicity, and we just want users to feel comfortable using the system.
There'll be a TFI plug option at some point for the guys with TFI setups. There'll be we're going to do TPS as well, like a connection for TPS, like a GM sensor.
That is correct.
So basically, I guess, and I'm speaking more to the Fox Body guys right now that are carbureted, that are running a TFI mod. Here's my angle for any of my Fox Body guys watching. Now, this system is going to be for anybody and everybody, right? But just talking to my guys directly right now, most of you guys want to pull out your TFI distributor because you think, oh, I'm going carbureted, I need to get rid of it. Well, with this system, you can leave it, which saves you money. It's going to save you money. You don't have to go out and buy the MSD distributor and the MSD box. You don't need any of that. You can keep your TFI distributor and literally just buy yourself a nice regulator that'll pull down your EFI pressure down to carb pressure. And you're good to go. This should be a plug and play.
That is correct. I mean, we're trying to make sure that we make this as easy for users as possible. So we're going to have a plug and play setup for TFI. You know, it's going to come with a harness, so there's really very little wiring to do.
Yeah.
Power, ground, and some basic connections. If you're using the plug and play harness, it'll plug right into the TFI. The system is currently set up for the testing that we've been doing for GM coolant and air temp sensors.
Yeah.
You know, but those are really easy to change if you're using, you know, Ford parts. I mean, even for those guys who might be, you know, doing a boosted carburetor application, right, like a blow-through setup. If they've got a blow-through setup and they've got a high-pressure pump in the tank, and you know, they set the injector up on the high-pressure side, they offer this kit in 1 injector and 2 injector varieties. And the system comes with a 4-bar map sensor. So the system is good to read up to 44 pounds of boost. Yeah, excessive for the vast majority of applications, but that's what we put in everything that we produce. It is standard. That way the system will be able to supplement fuel and help you make sure that your blow-through application is fueled correctly as well. Great part here too is with the system installed, let's say the system is installed and it's controlling the ignition advance in this blow-through setup. And you never want to make more than, let's just say, 14 pounds of boost. You'll be able to set up a safety in the system so that it cuts ignition if you get over a set amount of boost, so that you can, you know, wastegate failures happen if you're running a, you know, turbo setup. That's race car stuff. Having the ability to add modern safeties is really nice, especially if you're running a carburetor application.
For sure.
You know, there's nothing worse than having a runaway, and you know, things tend to do a high speed come apart.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it would just be a good safety measure for anybody running like turbo setups, blow through setups, you know, whether it be supercharger or turbo. It'd be a good safety net for you. And there again, you know, most people, the problem you run into with a blow through setup is, how do I control my timing? The fuel part is controlled. You know, if you got a good blow through carburetor, you're good on that end. But the timing control is where it gets tricky. So this offers that. Right. So you already got your timing control. And like you said, you can have that safety net up top, and you can, you know, basically cut spark. It's honestly a very simple solution to a huge problem that people have going blow through.
Yeah, you don't have to have any fancy ignition box either. You can set this up, and using ignition advance from the controller, you'll be able to set up a full ignition table. So, you know, when the engine's under vacuum, you can set your timing there, a wide open throttle for your naturally aspirated guys. And if in the event someone is, you know, boosted, they'll be able to set their ignition advance under boost as well. So it gives them nice full ignition control along with the supplemental fuel.
This system doesn't pull a lot of amps, correct?
No, that's like 3 to 5 amps.
3 to 5 amps. So guys, think about that for a second. That's a game changer. That makes installation really, really easy, especially for the older cars, the classic cars. You know, sometimes that can be an issue. Well, Steve, I really do appreciate this, and we'll definitely include this in the video. And also, he'll be down in the comment section, so we're going to post up a top comment down there. And if you guys got any questions, or if you got any ideas on what you might like to see, post them down in the comments, and Steve's going to try to go down and try to answer some of this stuff for you guys as best as possible. But, brother, I appreciate you, and I think everybody's really going to like this system.
Not a problem. I appreciate you having me on. And, you know, if anybody's interested, if you are an EFI guy, you know, we've got systems for everybody, from plug and play to wire in, drive-by-wire conversions, whatever you want to do, we can help you do it. Everything made right here in the state of Georgia in the great USA.
That's right. And you also have a dyno, correct? So you guys...
We do. We have a dyno here on site. I tune all of our race cars. All of my employees are race car guys. We all have race cars. We have we have quite a few Mustangs in the shop. Everything from Fox bodies all the way through your Terminator Cobras.
Oh yeah. Well, if someone was looking for a dyno tune with one of your systems, is that something that you guys offer?
Absolutely. Now, we only tune race cars. So car comes in on a trailer, leaves on a trailer. Other than that, you're pretty good to go.
Understood. Race cars. Well, all right, brother. Well, I appreciate you, and we'll talk later.
All right, man. Thanks.